Today we have a story of getting revenge for getting put on performance review for having cancer. We'll get into that in a bit, but first, burned my ex-BFF's project that made her repeat a grade level. You're in for a long ride. This happened years ago in high school, 10th grade. I had a friend, let's call her Lenny. She's one of those cringe wannabe popular kids in high school that joins all of the dance and singing competitions, even though she sounds worse than a cat in heat. Lenny was my first friend when I transferred, and I did my best to be a good friend to her. I bought her meals while she's in dance practice, did her assignments, and was her #1 supporter. When I say #1, I meant it. I made banners, cheers, and I was there to every competition she joined. Now this is where it all started. One day, Lenny was practicing for another dance competition while I was there chatting with her. She told me she was talking to a new cute guy, and was planning to take him seriously. Of course, I was happy for her, so I cheered her on. That was until she told me that the guy was 2 years older than us and has a rumor going around of being a freak boy. I tried my best to warn her about it, but she got all defensive, saying it was her chance to finally get a cute guy, and she really wants my support other than bitterness. I said alright and went on my day because I don't really want to argue about my friend's happiness. Days later, Lenny called me crying her heart out, saying she did her best and she really liked him. Turns out the dude was seen with an older girl being all flirty and stuff, as expected, and the news eventually got to Lenny, so she confronted him about it. The guy admits that he's talking to another girl that will help him get to college and had the audacity to block my friend. I felt bad for my friend. I tried my best to comfort her on FaceTime, saying stuff like he's not worth it and she didn't do anything wrong, basically trying to cheer her up. The whole comfort conversation on FaceTime lasted until 2 a.m. when she finally got sleepy from all that crying. I did my best for her, but she obviously was so sad about what happened that it got to the point where she couldn't focus on both her schoolworks and dance practice anymore. In addition to that, a month is left till school ends, so projects are piling up. I came up with a suggestion of her quitting the competition instead to focus on academics and herself, but she responded with, "I can't leave the competition because it's my passion, and she loves dancing, etc." So we both tried to think of a solution for her problem, till the conversation turned into her asking me if I can do some of her assignments. I was stupid on this part and too naive, but I eventually said yes because I really loved my friend. Since then, a routine began with her being on the dance practice, while I do both of our schoolworks. At night, she still rants about the jerk in both chat and FaceTime while I do our projects. This routine continued for about 3 weeks, until one night in the middle of her rants on chat, I accidentally left her on red, cause I was busy with a lot of stuff piled up and fell asleep right away. The next day, I messaged Lenny saying sorry, but she didn't reply. I went to school, turned both of our assignments in, and went to check on her. I eventually saw Lenny and tried to give her a hug, something I always do to my friends. But Lenny pushed me away so hard while not saying a word and left me with no explanation at all. I was shocked and confused for a second, but soon started bawling my eyes out. There were students around me, but I didn't care at all because I was more focused on how hurt I was from what she did. A group of girls then soon came to me, sat me down, and stayed till I calmed down. And guess what? It was a group of girls Lenny had a beef with. Even though they knew I was friends with the girl who hates them, those girls were the ones that took care of me that time and not Lenny, which made me feel very betrayed. We chatted a bit, and with that, I actually came to the realization that I was just a witch's personal pushover. I still tried to message Lenny trying to fix things out, but she blocked me, so that just fueled something in me. Why would she push a friend who helped her so much just like that? Without letting me explain myself from why I couldn't reply earlier, she just threw me away. That's how it felt that time. So as soon as I got home, I took out all the assignments I made that was named after her, including a notebook with almost 63 pages that I wrote back to back for a project. I turned on the stove and burned them all one by one. I still remember how satisfied I felt that night and how peaceful I slept, with no ranting roach on my back. I wasn't able to see Lenny in a few days after that, until their competition came and she got a silver award. Good for her, I guess. She had 2 days of celebration until she finally came back to class. It was the end of the school year, and we have 1 week to complete all our schoolworks before finalizing our grades. Our advisor came in to check on our missing requirements. That's when the teacher started calling Lenny's name for each and one of her missing assignments and projects. And it was just music to my ears. One time when her name was called, once again, she actually looked at me in disbelief. I stared right back at her and raised one of my eyebrows with a smug look. Later on, she started posting stuff on social media about me, saying I was selfish, cunning, a traitor, and a jealous person who betrayed her because I was jealous that she was focusing on her passion. Only a few people really believed it because I was her only actual friend at school. Or should I say, ex? She was also known as someone that has drama with almost the whole school, even with one of the teachers, so her calling someone out on social media is a normal occurrence. I know I'm better than that, so I just let her yap all she wants and ignored all her crap. The teachers eventually told her that she won't be able to graduate with the amount of schoolwork she's missing, but the school gave her half of the vacation to finish them all up as a prize for winning an award in the dance competition she joined. I thought it was unfair, but whatever. Graduation came and she was unable to attend because she still wasn't able to finish her piled up schoolwork. As I enjoy my vacation with a new healthy group of friends, she's stuck suffering on those piled crap the same way I did. Also, she commented the snake emoji on some of my posts with my new friends. I find it very immature. Honestly, it just pains me to read this story and hear OP talking about doing all these piles of work for their friend. I could have a friend who I consider my absolute ride or die, and I would never expect them to pick up that much slack for me. To carry my entire high school career for me? Zoreb1 wrote, high school nonsense. So Lenny expected you to bail her out with her schoolwork but blocks and ignores you? Didn't even ask about it before they needed handing in? She's not too bright, can't even fake it until the project is in. She's probably a future HOA president. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy awesome stories of revenge, it would be awesome if you left a like or left a review if you're listening to my podcast. That said, our next story is crop dusting looking at DVDs. I read the post yesterday of someone crop dusting a rude table full of dude bros. It reminded me of a time I had done that as well. About 20 years ago or so, I was shopping at the local Best Buy. It was one of my favorite things to do, browsing the many aisles for DVD sales which added to my home collection. I was looking in the sci-fi aisle, and the next aisle over that I was facing was rom-com or something. I noticed there was a couple over in the next aisle, only because I like to be aware of my surroundings. As I'm looking at the DVDs on the shelf, the boyfriend in the next aisle snaps his fingers at me and says, "Better stop checking out my girl." I'm taken aback since I was doing no such thing. Then he gave me a mean face as he looked me up and down. I guess he was challenging me or something, whatever. I thought, be a Cro-Mag, bud. Haha, stupid. I responded with a chuckle at my inner thoughts and told him that I was not checking out his girl. That's when he puffed up his chest and asked me what my problem was and that we could solve it outside. As soon as that came out, his girl came up and told him that he needed to stop causing a scene and just let me be. She also said that I was looking at movies and that I was nowhere near her league anyway. I really wasn't in the mood to deal with their crap, so I held up my hands and apologized for any misunderstanding. I walked away down the aisle a section or two, and the guy just gives me this smirk like he's won or something. I feel the fart coming on. Before I know it, it comes out, but it's not a ripper, it's a soul-crushing silent one. I catch a whiff of it and it even grosses me out, so I quickly move away. The next aisle over though, the couple were not so lucky. They moved over to the same section I was just in. As I walk away, I hear the girl very loudly say, "Oh my God, what is that smell?" Then I hear her gag and I hear the guy simultaneously say, "It's in my mouth, it's in my mouth, I can taste it." He did end up throwing up right there in the aisle. I quickly left the store, got in my car, and then laughed like there was no tomorrow. I only feel bad for the Best Buy employee who had to clean it up. I bet he's not the type of considerate guy who would even inform somebody that a mess was made that they threw up in the aisle. They probably did what OP did and immediately ran for the exit themselves. Professor KRS wrote, "He did end up throwing up should be the lead, not a casual mention at the end of this fabricated story." Our next story is Monkey Business with a Salesman. Funny story about my aunt that she loved to tell. Some 35 years ago, she had a door-to-door vacuum cleaner salesman come to her house several times trying to sell her a vacuum cleaner. Dude was relentless and quite pushy about it. After telling him repeatedly that she wasn't interested, the vacuum cleaner was quite expensive, she hatched a plan. The next time he stopped by, she invited him in for the demo. She asked a ton of questions, all while acting silly, like dancing around the house while he was showing her the machine, hanging upside down off the arm of the couch, etc. After he finished the demo, which she said took about an hour, she told him she would take it. She said the price was around $200. He was delighted that he was making the sale. She told him she would be right back and went to get a towel and laid it on the floor. She then went to get the large plastic monkey she kept in the laundry room and lugged it to the living room. The guy was totally confused until she pulled the stopper out of the bottom of the monkey and started shaking change out. See, my mom, a stay-at-home mom, did the laundry for her whole family. Her husband and 2 boys. They had a deal that any change left in the pockets was hers to keep. She had the monkey piggy bank next to the washer and would drop all the loose change in it. She would save up for a while and then spend it on a new outfit or a salon day. It had been a while since she had emptied it, so she figured there was at least a couple $100 in the monkey. My aunt emptied out the monkey on the towel next to the salesman, who just stood there in shock. She then told him she would buy the vacuum cleaner if he counted out all the change. At the end of the day, she had a new vacuum cleaner, and he had to lug $200 in loose change out of the door wrapped in a towel. I have several fun stories about my aunt, but this is one of my favorites. While it may have been a revenge, at the end of the day, that guy still did persist and make a sale. It might be annoying and he might lose like 25-30% if he goes to a coin counter or something, but he still made that sale. He's still gonna get his commission. Guy probably doesn't make enough money on his MLM job anyways, though. VBA Wizard wrote, possibly many years ago, I'm kinda old, we bought a Kirby vacuum. We still have it, but we don't actually use it. Got tired of lugging it up and down the stairs. A year or two goes by and a young kid and his boss come by selling, guess what? Kirby vacuum cleaners. I tell them that I already own one. They ought to show us on a list as a customer and should have skipped us. But instead, they asked if, since the kid was new, could he use us as training? So I said, well, my wife had other things to do, but I was watching the kids, so I had nothing else going on, so sure. He went through his spiel and came to the end and was disappointed when I didn't sign up to buy his product. I pointed out some things he could improve on with his pitch, but he brought his boss in and he started in on the strong-arm tactics about how wonderful it is. I countered with, your salesman said, this is the last vacuum you'll ever need to buy. And they said emphatically, it's true, it's a great product. I said, I agree, but that's the same thing that the last salesman said. It's the last vacuum I'd ever need to buy, so I bought one 2 years ago. So if I now need to buy another, either he lied or you are. Either way, it's not a good look for the company. He looked at me and said, I see your point, and packed up and left. Roswine wrote, I can't believe they missed the opportunity to sell you one for the 2nd floor so you wouldn't have to take yours up and down the stairs. One Satisfaction 8676 added their own story saying, like you, I'm pretty old and have not heard the name Kirby in many years, but it made me remember a sad story. I grew up in and around pool halls during my somewhat misspent youth. My grandfather first took me to one when I was 4 years old. We had a regulation slate top when I was 12 and I became very good. At 16, I spent most Saturdays playing for money against grown men and actually made a pretty good living for a kid. My mother hated it and constantly gave me grief, but teenagers will be teenagers. There was a guy that everyone called Kirby because that's what he sold door to door. I never knew his real name, just Kirby. He would show up most Saturdays flush with money and play for hours until he lost all of his money. He was not very good, but had a gambling problem. Could not stop. All of the regulars were happy to take his money. I'd been playing 9-ball with Kirby one Saturday for probably 3 hours. It was summer and probably 95 outside. The pool hall was a nice balmy 72. I took a break and grabbed a cola and went outside to have a smoke. Another thing my mother hated. And right out front in the blazing sun was an old Rambler station wagon with 3 kids sitting in the back seat, covered in sweat and looking miserable. I walked back inside, paid for 3 colas and took them back out to the kids, who were very thankful. I then went back in and asked loudly, whose kids are those outside in that car? The entire place went silent as a couple of men stepped outside to see what I was talking about. That's Kirby's car, one of them said, and the crap started. Everyone jumped his crap until he finally left and took his kids home. Everyone was happy to take his money every Saturday until they realized what was happening. From that point on, no one would ever play pool with him again. After coming in several Saturdays and trying to get up a game to no avail, he finally disappeared, and that's my Kirby story. Not funny like the rest, but true and sad. For a long time I wondered whatever happened to those kids. Our next story is The Smartest Rat, a gift that keeps on giving. So my college roommate and I were definitely more frenemies than friends. We'll call him H, not his real name. H had a pet rat, not legal in our dorm, but no one really cared. H was well known for every time he got back from class, picking up the rat and putting it on his shoulder for a ride as he puttered around the room. One fall afternoon, H told me he was heading home for the weekend and would I take care of his rat till he got back on Sunday. Me, having just studied operant conditioning in my Psychology 101 class, smiled and said sure. I had plenty of homework and an English paper to write this weekend anyways and would be in the whole weekend, so no problem. QH leaving on Friday about 3 p.m. Yours truly was butt broke at the time and could only pull $5 out of the bank account. So me and $5 traipsed our way over to the local 7-Eleven and bought a package of salted sunflower seeds and a 16-ounce Coke. I, of course, picked up said rat and put it on my shoulder as soon as I got back to our room. I calmly walked over to my desk, pulled out a pair of scissors and cut off the top of the sunflower seeds package, and had a few. And fed the rat one. Then I pet the rat, said very nice things in a nice voice, and put it back in its cage so I could finish my Coke. 3 minutes later, I picked the rat back up and put it on my shoulder and fed the rat another sunflower seed, said nice things, petted the rat, and put it back in its cage. It was a really nice rat. After about 20 or 30 times, the rat would even wait a minute or so very patiently to get his reward and get petted. So I started putting the rat on one shoulder and then feeding it on the other one, and then I started waiting till the rat had crossed back and forth several times while he checked for the seed before I fed him. It was a very smart and motivated rat. And then I started holding the seed next to the ear so the little rat whiskers tickled. It was about 10 p.m. and I still had a paper to write, so the rat got put down for the night and I finished a partial draft on my English paper. Saturday after brunch, I picked the rat up and let it walk back and forth several times before feeding it next to my ear. We practiced that for a while before I got back to my paper and homework, but after dinner we started over again in earnest. This time I was waiting until the rat was on the opposite side of my shoulder and slipped the sunflower seed into the little notch in my ear, with a little trepidation, not wanting to be bit accidentally, but he was a very gentle rat during the retrieval and there was never a mishap. Between mostly finishing my paper and stretching out the feeding time for the rate between multiple ear checks, oh and it tickled, I was mostly out of sunflower seeds and decided to save the last 20 or so for Sunday. Sunday morning, the rat and I finished our mutual entertainment fairly early and I went out for brunch and spent the rest of the day cleaning up my 9-page paper. Still can't remember what it was on. Sure enough, about 5 p.m., H comes back and I'm sitting under my loft, feet on my desk playing computer games. H and I greet each other and it's all I can do to not have a crap-eating grin on my face. H does what he always did, put his bag down on his desk, walked over to the rat cage, and said nice words and put the rat on his shoulder. The rat, of course, did what it had been doing all weekend and promptly walked over and stuck its little nose and whiskers in each ear looking for sunflower seeds. H, never having experienced rat whiskers in his ears, reacted as expected, with several surprised curses and the ignominious and rapid removal of said rat back to its cage, only to confusedly pick up the rat and put it back on his shoulder again after a few minutes, with foreseeable consequences. Keep in mind, I'm only hearing all of this and doing my very best to not bust a gut out loud. After a few minutes and several up and down events, H loudly declares, "What the freak did you do to my rat?" After a good deal of uncontrollable laughing on my part, the noise brought in guys across the hall, which made it even worse when H demonstrated what was going on. I eventually explained what I had done. What's even better is that he was never able to figure a way to untrain the rat. Honestly, I think this is a pretty cute story. I haven't had an opportunity to firsthand really witness or handle rats, but as long as it's specifically a pet rat, I think I would definitely be finding them just super adorable. Snoo Cauliflowers 9874 wrote, "Rats are honestly some of the sweetest pets I have ever seen. My daughter had rats for many years and she treated them like her little babies. Almost all of them lived much longer than the average lifespan, and I always believed it was due to them being loved." Our next story is, I and a friend crop dusted a table because they made our server cry. It was my friend's birthday, and a group of us had planned to take him out to his favorite restaurant. When we get there, party of 8, we're sat near a smaller table full of dudes who fit the stereotype of dude bros. After roughly 5 minutes, we discovered that they were going to be a problem. They are pretty loud and rude, giving their server a hard time. Soon, our server came and it was the same girl who was serving the rude table. She apologized for the wait and made a comment about how she had a lot on her plate. We tell her it's fine and we understand. She takes our drink orders and gives us some more time to pick our food. A few more minutes go by and then we hear yelling. From what we gathered, one of the dudes wanted a drink, alcoholic, but didn't bring his ID. The server was doing her best to remain calm and keep control over the situation. He kept gesturing to his phone and we heard the server, "I'm sorry, but I can't accept a screenshot." Finally, one of his friends steps up and says he'll buy the drink for him. The server does her best to explain that he can't. It's illegal, and she could get in big trouble for it. Dude 2 then gets upset and now it's the whole table in an uproar. Finally, the server says that she'll get her manager and quickly leaves in tears. The birthday boy is ticked and says he's going to say something. Lucky his girlfriend stops him. That's when another friend smirks and says, "I have a better idea. We'll call him Jack." Jack goes, "I have to fart." Being on the same wavelength, I smile and go, "So do I." Jack says, "Are we going to crop dust this table?" I said, "I think we are." The rude table is located in a way that you'd have to walk by them to get to the bathroom, and you can walk either to the left or right of the table. Jack stands up first and makes his way to the bathroom. When he disappears around the corner, that's when the effects hit. At first, the dudes think it's hilarious pointing out one particular guy and placing the blame on him. He doesn't think it's so funny and is steadily getting mad. That's when I step up. I make my way to the bathroom, passing on the opposite side of the table that Jack did. When I clear the corner, Jack is standing there with a crap-eating grin. We stand there and listen to the true chaos begin. The rude table doesn't find the second crop dusting as funny as the first one. They're now yelling and pointing fingers at one another. The icing on the cake is when the manager finally comes over. He tells them that they're being too loud, and they're going to have to leave if they don't calm. They're ticked and then start complaining about their server. Jack and I can't see the manager's face, but he was quiet for a good minute before he starts talking again. He has to explain the law to them when it comes to alcohol, adding on that the table can't be served alcohol at all due to Dude 2's comment about buying it for someone else, since they can't confirm that the person who's going to drink it is 21. They're super ticked at that, but still stay. They get a new server who is a very buff man with a face that says freak around and find out. They spend the rest of their time there with basically their heads down in shame. You're telling me the universe perfectly lined up 13 billion years of space dust floating around just in time for OP and their friend to sync up their crop dusters? Sounded pretty effective to me. Severe Inevitable 599 wrote, "Kudos. Some heroes don't wear capes, but crap their pants to save others." Our next story is, "Want to put me on performance review for having cancer?" Okay. Sorry this is a long one and happened a few years ago. After several checks, it was confirmed I had cancer and had to be in the hospital for a while. I worked in recruitment, and to my knowledge, to my face/in calls to me anyway, my company was supportive of my battle. Whilst at home recovering from an op that I had to have to remove the cancer and to help with recovery, I kept on working/kept up with my clients, etc., even though I took 3 months off of unpaid leave. I just wanted to show my company that although I was off, like I asked for cancer or something, and also wanted to show them that I was grateful of their support and understanding of what I was going through. During this time, I made several high-profile placements, and due to most having long notice periods, technical directors, etc., they wouldn't start off for a few months, and we invoice and bill clients on start date. The pipeline I had generated was worth $200,000 in a single month, which was the highest ever in the 10-year history of the company. A very good month would be about $20,000 to $30,000 generated. When I came back, I had a meeting with the director, and I was about to thank him for his support, etc., and to excitedly tell him about my pipeline. However, before I could, he said he was happy I was healthy. However, he had to put me on performance review for missing a critical time in the business and for not hitting my targets. I looked at him and said, "As you know, I had cancer and also took the time off as unpaid." The director said yes. However, not meeting KPIs while still employed by us means I have to do this to be fair to others in the team. I looked at him shocked, but then did the math in my head and just said, "Okay." Now, it takes about 30 days for payment to hit our accounts, so I bid my time. That week, the first batch of my new placements dropped. I quietly invoiced. The next week, more followed. Third week, our division had our monthly meeting where we each have to share the pipeline for that month. It got to me and I said, I'm currently on $161,000, have another $40,000 pending. You should have seen his face. His boss was at that meeting also. Most of my team knew what had happened to me and had my back and smirked. We got paid commission monthly, and I knew I had another 5 weeks before these would get paid out. So I just quietly worked and luckily was also approached by one of my internal clients that wanted me to come work internally for them. I'm actually still with them to this day. As soon as that wedge of commission dropped, I called a meeting with the director. He was all smiles and said, OP, I knew there would be no hard feelings about having to put you on performance review, and we're taking you off it. I see now it was completely unnecessary. I told him thanks, but I was giving him my notice. I said that having gone through the stress of what I had to go through really made me think about what was important at the end of the day. He and his boss apparently did not know about the performance review, I don't know if true or not, tried to make me stay by offering raises and promotions, etc. I, of course, refused. A couple of people I know are still there, and to this day, my record of highest biller in that company still stands. Several people did leave after I did, only around 3 people from when I was there remain, not counting the directors or owners. I guess they have their reasons, money being one. I went to work internal for a big global who my old agency wanted to be sole external recruitment partner for. It was funny when they found out I was going there. I have final say on who we use, and I've refused and said no to this agency every time. Thus, took away one of their biggest clients that I looked after whilst there anyway. I now look after the recruitment of the business groups in the industry that my current company that this agency recruits in. When I started, the director of the agency called me and said, "It's great that you're there as we can continue to foster a special relationship." I said thank you, however I know I just started here and so need to get the lay of the land. Also, part of the remit of hiring me is to look at agency spend, which has been high. So I guess it makes sense to hire me. When they tried sending me candidates, they were candidates that I and the team had already approached. And so I told them that and that it looks like we're on top of things now. Thanks for their help, but it's no longer needed. When the director found out I started at the new company, he gave me a glowing endorsement on LinkedIn. He then asked me for one back in response. I left that unread. Yes, maybe I should have looked at it a bit more, being paid, unpaid leave, going on commission base only, etc. At the time I was reeling at being told I had ovarian cancer and what needed to be done. Thinking about my son and what if or would happen to him if I were no longer around. It's hard to explain the thought process one has. And maybe I was taken advantage of, but I beat my cancer. And to this day, feel like I managed to get the last laugh on them. Not only did I leave on my terms, but they also have a reminder of that record-breaking sales tally until someone manages to break it. All I have to say is any place that treats you like that, you're clearly much better off somewhere else, even if they want to act all apologetic after you clearly understandably get upset and look to leave. Andrew S.E. wrote, "It sounds like he got rid of cancer twice. Congratulations." But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another awesome revenge story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.